All right. Good evening, everyone. Hopefully you all had an excellent time today. Hopefully you had a great day today or a great evening. It might be evening where you're tuning in from. So, yeah, let's go ahead and get started. What we're going to do today is do a market review, what happened today in New York, uh, what happened and where do I think price is going to go now that we've had one day of trading action this week. I will be monitoring chat as always, so feel free to drop a question in there and I'll try to answer it. I'll monitor it much better now that I know it's there. But yeah, I think that's it. Lots of good stuff happened today. We're going to take a look at and see what that looks like. So let's head over to the charts. So let's go here. Okay, so we're going to start on the weekly this time. And please bear in mind, keep in mind that my colors are color coded, such as like red is a monthly, yellow's a weekly, and then purple is a daily. So those are what I consider to be higher time frames, and those are important to me. Some scalpers don't even look at them, but I think to have a holistic view, you need to know what is going on. So you need the repetitions of going through that cycle, walking through that cycle. So, yeah, I think that from weekly is a good one to walk through since we're looking at 1 week at a time. So let's zoom in on this week. So we have this green candle as our weekly candle. This is the one that we've started down here. We opened and then we started to trade up as evidenced today. And we see that on the weekly side, these yellow items here, we can see I've marked a bearish order block. So that opened around 15,753.25. Everything shifted just a little bit because the contracts, they all rolled from I think June to September, or I guess September to October, November, December now. So when that happens, you have to reset your whole chart, just wipe it blank and then rechart everything because all the levels are wrong now. So yep, I have this one as 15,753 here. So I'm going to make sure that that's annotated correctly. And it's important to have those numbers. I find it important to have those numbers because you have an idea of where those higher time frames are when you go down to lower time frames. So we didn't trade all the way up to this previous new week opening gap and this previous rejection block. So this leads me to believe that on the weekly, so there's a few things here. There's another new week opening gap here. There's a daily premium volume imbalance, which we'll see when we go down to the daily. There is a rejection block on the weekly. These two are close here. So this whole segment here can be deemed a rejection block. We have this weekly bearish order block. So there's a lot of confluence in this area that leads me to believe that we'll probably head up here and reject once more. Yes, we could certainly continue bull running all the way up to this weekly short-term high. Do I think that's likely? Possibly. Definitely possible. I mean, we on the monthly, remember these monthly levels here? Price traded up to that monthly level, rejected, tried to go into it a little bit further, picked up some more orders, and then dumped. So I don't think that, while I don't think it's impossible, I think that I would be surprised if it got through all of that. I mean, yeah, I guess it could, but I would be surprised. I'll trade it either way. I will trade it, but for now, this is what I'm looking at for it to draw up in this area. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to have a sense as to where your bias is any particular day. On the downside, we see the only weekly item that I see is a bullish order block here. On the weekly charts, there's nothing in between there. Maybe the only thing that I might mark out is this little range here. So this is this wick that happened last week. So this is something that is important because I want to see how price trades at that 50% mark. So let's go ahead and mark that one on our charts, just for the week at the very least. So this is 15424.75. And we will make that into a consequent encroachment. And since that is a weekly wick, let's color code that accordingly so we know what it is. I think I used goldenrod on that one. Let me see what these weekly ones, it might have been orange actually. I think it's orange. Yeah, that looks a lot better. Okay, so that 50% mark, you won't know why I'm putting that there and referencing it until you go do your own backtesting and get a sense of like, hey, like this is where this is a key level, right? So you won't really know until you go backtest. So just make sure you draw that on your charts, have it there, and then watch how price trades to it and or through it, okay? And we're gonna mark that as 1 week wick consequent encroachment here. So I could certainly see if my weekly bias is bearish, then it should and could certainly trade down to there. Now we see this week opened with a slight down tick before it shotgunned up. So I mean, it's really possible, very, very, very possible that this particular week that we go and take some of these buy side liquidity areas and sweep it. We do have CPI on Wednesday. Let me bring over that calendar. So there's this calendar I use, Forex Factory. It gives you everything you need to know, and you can actually filter on the United States here, up top here. I like to look at it to see what's here. So tomorrow, 6 a.m., you're probably not going to be trading NFIB Small Business Index, you know, pretty low, low impact there. Same with 10-year bond auction. Although I have seen some volatility around that 1 o'clock time frame. So watch and see what happens around those time frames, but just know that the big thing that's being set up is this core CPI on Wednesday. It's a very high impact event. 8:30 a.m. tomorrow is going to be tricky, so make sure you keep that in your charts and just that time on Wednesday in your mind. Okay, so let's get back. So we have on the weekly, we're done with the weekly for the most part. We know where our draws are. Let's go down to the daily. So remember, dailies are these purple lines are key daily levels. Okay. So what we want to do is let's take a look at how price has traded so far. So we are still in this kind of like upswing here. And what I like to see is 1 big drive, 2 big drives. I would like to see CPI give us a nice spike to a 3rd big drive. And then I would like to see us dump from that point onwards. We can certainly go all the way up to this monthly SIBI or this volume imbalance here. I see on the daily. And looks like it shifted a little bit. So let's fix that one there. And let's take a look at our own SIBIs here. Looks like this has also shifted just a tiny bit there. Last week, if you looked at before the contracts rolled over, this was a very clear sell side imbalance, buy side inefficiency. But now we've actually got we actually have a volume imbalance down there in this segment here, and this can still be construed. This can still be thought of as a gap from this green candle's low 9.5 through 9.6 to 9.7. To the 9.7 high, that can certainly still be considered a gap. But I mean, with this wick here having gone all the way through and price come back up, I'm less inclined to keep this at this point in time. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this off. We know it might still refer to it, but we're going to draw in the volume imbalance that is there now instead. So what we want is a daily here. We're going to actually steal that one, and we're going to place this here as well, just so that we can have that volume imbalance there on the daily chart. Okay. So I'm going to remove the purple lines. We're going to keep the gray ones. Okay, so a volume imbalance. What is that? That's something where price, you see wicks go sell all the way down and buys come back up, and then wicks go up and then sells knock it down. There's some orders that are still left there, and this price action up leads me to believe that there's maybe some price action down that could equalize or balance this run up. So we're going to keep that in mind for later. We won't mess with it right this moment, but it certainly could go back down to that level. What else on the daily is there? Let's make sure we mark that first and have that there. 1 day volume imbalance is what I'm going to mark it as. And then let's see what else is here. So outside of that, nothing too crazy. We mark these short-term lows, short-term highs, what price could draw for. We know these higher time frame PD arrays that we can kind of aim for and see where price is taking us. So I think we're good on the daily. We have the things that we need. We kind of have them written down now, and this BISI is still valid. It hasn't closed all the way down here, so there's still some unfinished business down here that could draw price at some point in the future. All right, so let's go down to the hourly and we'll start to be able to take a look and see what happened today. Okay, so if you recall, this is last week's price action. It ended on Friday, and then Asia occurred. Let's zoom in on Asia just a little bit. So we see that price went up, went up, went up. Today, after New York, we had a nice drop, took out some of the buy side, liquidity there, dropped it down to a discount fair value gap on the hourly. So if you're patient and went long anywhere in this segment here, you would have capitalized on the main expansion. This is a trade that I took. I made quite a lot off of it, actually. And we'll go zoom into that. We'll take a look into that and see what the deal is. So I think that, let me pull this over. That one is later on in the afternoon. I think 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock time frame. So on the hourly, we do see that it went back down into a discount, took out some of the waiting orders there, left this open as a breakaway gap, did not trade lower than this fair value gap, and then off to the races. So let's take a look at what the 15-minute looked like. All right. So this is, again, the same day, just on a lower time frame now. We see that we opened here. We traded down below it briefly. We looked at this short-term low, this 15494.75. We took that out, 15492, and then created a fair value gap there where it just bounced into, grabbed some more orders, and eventually continued forward and upwards. So on the 15-minute, we also see that there's a pretty large movement here at 1:15 in the morning. So if you were to wake up around 7 o'clock, you would have seen just this portion of price action. So this is noticeable. This is something important. It's large. It's vicious. It is a very fast movement. So you'd want to mark that. And as we continued on in the day, you would expect at open, there's some relative equal highs here that we'll look at on the lower time frame. But you'll expect some of those initial ones to get squeezed out, and then we drop, right? On the lower time frames, we'll notice that there's some other boxes here that we want to look at, but this 15-minute one is pretty darn good. I mean, look at how the price kind of respects that fair value gap, and that's specifically a buy side imbalance, sell side inefficiency. Now, the 10 o'clock to 11 o'clock was not the easiest to trade. However, by you seeing that this fair value gap kept on being protected, and on the hourly, remember there were two fair value gaps. We didn't go below this first one here. We expected that other one to be a breakaway gap and for it not to close. And so that was something that I was using in the back of my mind as I was taking this trade. So on the 15-minute, we see a low formed here. It tries to go up. The bodies themselves continue to go up, okay? So where are the bodies going? They continue to go pick up some orders. If you ignore all the candles do a lot of damage, but that's where the price action is going. So you can see we have bullish movement here. It goes down, picks up some more orders, continues upwards, goes down into this bullish order block, picks up more orders, goes up again, goes back down into this order block, picks up more orders, and then runs for lunchtime. This is a lunchtime run for liquidity up here that occurs as well. So that's a trade that you can take, the lunchtime macro. Many more times often than not during lunchtime, the price tends to go back and take any sort of pre-lunchtime liquidity, or it'll start to run for it rather. So after this occurred, though, I mean, you can continue forward and go from there. And yeah, I mean, outside of that, the rest of the day just got away from people. If you weren't there here, you could have still gotten in and scalped all the way up to this or this short-term high and still made a pretty penny. And then once we hit the highs here, you know, I think I took a small scalp in the end of the day on a different evaluation account and let it come back on me about 1,000. So no big deal there. It's an evaluation account. I've seen that happen before. It was the end of the day, so I should have expected it, but my mind was elsewhere. I was distracted, so I raised the stop and kind of let it sit there. Let's look at the 5-minute on this chart. So here's where we start to get into some interesting things too. So these are all the same price actions that you saw today, the whole day. Now on the 5-minute chart, it's a little more difficult to read, but you still see that there were these fair value gaps that consist of much like, you know, larger movements before London hour hits. So London respects the New Week opening gap, rises, goes all the way to here. And what we see here, we'll see clearer on the 1 minute, but there's price action here that initially went up. They started to go down, and then in the beginning they jacked it up to kind of take those stops. Anybody who is short there, they basically got squeezed out. They have to buy. Others buy because they think it's a breakout, and then the market, what does it do? It drops it. And this is within 1 5-minute candle as well. So if you see some buy side liquidity and you see it get taken within the first few minutes, chances are there's if you are bullish, or rather bearish, chances are you're going to see that get taken. Okay. Not always, but very, very possible. I mean, this spiked through one, two, um, three, kind of three or four points of liquidity, short-term lows. So very powerful. I did expect this gap to get filled, and then maybe a run on these later on in the day, and that's exactly what would happen. So this section, very choppy, very difficult to get a read. You would have gotten stopped out if you weren't paying attention to this higher time frame here. This might have been an okay one, but either way, you're trying to weather 15, 20 points of drawdown on NASDAQ. So if you're not trading micros, it's going to feel kind of tough. But once the air cleared out, the bodies continue to tell the story that they're going up. So yeah, I mean, not much on the 5-minute to point out, except the draws continued to move upwards today. And you could have taken any one of these order blocks and you would have been profitable at the end of the day. But could you have held it the whole time? That's the question. All right, so let's go down to a 1 minute now. And I want to take our attention to the points right before 9:30 a.m. So you can kind of see here that we had relative equal highs here, kind of. So we see price go up there. We see it reject, go up again, fail, and then reject really hard. So somewhere in there, if you're very bold, as long as you're above that rejection block going short, you have a high probability that you're going to be on side. Now, you need to typically look for these candles to give you a little bit more indication that it's about to drop. On the 1 minute, there's not really much there. And in fact, I'm checking an even lower time frame. Even on the lower time frame, it would have been really difficult because it would have been a tiny 15-second volume imbalance that you would have had to get in on, and that would have been quite difficult in itself. So yeah, I mean, 9:30 a.m. market opens, goes and rushes up, tries to get some FOMO people to buy in, gets all the shorts that were short from before around here, they get them to get squeezed out, and of course it drops. So oops, I just moved one of the blue boxes I didn't want to move. So rest of the day, pretty rangy. So as you can see, quite difficult to get a read on that day until it starts to spike. So and I think that once you're past this spike, once you see that we've traded, we've not made many lower lows, we've always been making higher highs, that kind of leads me to believe that, hey, we're probably a little bit bullish at this point in time. So I ended up taking this trade right here. Basically, I consider it to be an immediate rebalance where we had displacement above it, drop down here, immediate retracement, immediate rebalance, and then off to the races there. And that was this trade here. It was a pretty ugly one. I got stopped out first, and then I ended up making a lot more movement, eventually closing the trade far too early, but closing the trade up here at around 15,625, whereas I was averaged about 15,600, I would say. Salami Ilian, how are you doing, brother? Let me know if I'm pronouncing that name, but hey, Salami, doing great. How are you doing? Where are you? Where are you watching from? What part of the world? Thanks so much for coming in too. Hopefully this market review can kind of help dissect what is coming, what played throughout the day. You know, how did price action play throughout the day? And if you missed price action, if you missed how it plays out during the day, what I can do, the whole reason why I record is because I need to take a look at what happened during price action, right? So I went to record the day here, this day 8 live price action for Monday 9/11. That is where you're gonna be able to play back tick by tick how each candle moved. And I keep 4 time frames so that you can get a sense of the macro to the micro. And so definitely go here and rewatch that. It takes time. It will feel boring, but it is well worth it for you to use that live price action instead of trading view. UAE, that's amazing. Oh, that is so cool. I want to visit UAE sometime, but I'm trading from the United States. It's a state called Columbus, or rather a state called Ohio in USA. And I'm in the States. Yeah. Glad to have you here. So cool. So very cool. So yeah, I just got through the market review for today as for what happened today and how price action looked and booked. You can see those higher time frame buy side imbalances that I pointed out here, and that bigger one, that 15-minute one over here. So this whole blue box is that 15-minute imbalance. Look at how accurate this is. So when I say point out imbalances, like, look at that. It gets right to the bottom there. So certainly I think that tomorrow, and let's go back to the hourly time frame to get a sense of what could happen tomorrow. Okay, so tomorrow, keep in mind, this week we opened up here and we've traded up in the first day of the week. We see, what do we see on our charts? What is possible liquidity here? So I see this possibly being a point of liquidity, very small fair value gap, sell side imbalance fair value gap. It could certainly draw up to here. This is a weekly rejection block there. So I think price is going to draw up towards this new week opening gap, these 2 black lines here. There's a daily volume imbalance in here. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Would love to connect sometime. I think that UAE is one of the coolest places that a lot of Americans don't get to visit very, very frequently. So sounds like it just would be so cool to experience culture there. So I hope I get to go someday. And let me know if you've ever made it to America too, or if you're, I don't even know, do folks in the UAE even want to go to America given what the news says about America? Who knows? But yeah, we're gonna head up, I think, here to this weekly rejection block. Price, I think, is going to potentially book all the way up to this weekly bearish order block here, that yellow line. All my weekly levels are yellow lines. Keep that in mind. And I think once we get there, I want to see what happens with CPI on Wednesday. I think that CPI is waiting to take this sell side or this buy side liquidity out, meaning if tomorrow we kind of get one of these things and we kind of end around here, I feel like, or maybe even come up here and not take it out. Maybe like come up here and then draw down and just kind of end here. I fully anticipate CPI spiking up here, taking these out, and then continuing downwards. Do I think that that price will move all the way up here? No. It's possible, but no. I don't think so. I think that we've taken the monthly. I think we've already taken the monthly liquidity there, here. It failed, created a lower low, and has now attempting to retrace before the next leg lower. So that's what I'm thinking. That's what my bias is for the trading week of NASDAQ. And I think Tuesday is where I'm going to look for the next high to form. And then Wednesday CPI, again, I'm waiting for Wednesday to take this out. It's possible Tuesday can take it out too. So just keep an eye out for that. We do see on the hourly that there's this big fair value gap here. So let me take some of these other ones off for now. So we can get a little bit cleaner of a chart here. And I'm going to borrow this one since we already traded to it. So the next weekly draw, well, we see that we've drawn into this fairly large buy side imbalance, sell side inefficiency. This is a BISI. It's a BISI fair value gap in ICT terminology. I see it already barely entering it and then continuing upwards. So I think it's gonna, let me zoom in a little bit because there's a liquidity void here. What does that mean? So this area right here, this is a area where there is no price action. Nothing happened. It just gapped past that. So I fully intend to see this reach up towards that gap and fill it back up. And remember, this is still on the hourly chart. So I fully expect it to reach up there, fill it out. And then what I like to do is also take a look at this hourly gap. It's pretty big. So I like to at least find the midpoint here and draw that out. And I have that. So 15,627, we'll call it 15,627. And I like to see that and have that listed out as a middle point of that fair value gap. So what will happen is when you go down on your when you go down on the lower time frames, you're going to see this this gap here. If it's going to go up further, it has to achieve that midpoint at the very least. And look what else is there. So I see this down close candle. It's the bigger one of these two from a body's perspective. So I think that what we may see is a retracement down to that level, 15,621.25. Thinking that we might see an hourly order block there. Let's go with a black line. And I think price will trade back down here and then continue back up towards those higher time frame objectives that we pointed out just now. These here. That's my bias for tomorrow. And, you know, that's about it. Let me know if there's any questions. Happy to answer any that come. Just drop them in the comments below if there's any questions. Hopefully this review was helpful. I do it myself each night to see what price might do tomorrow, see what kind of setups I might be looking for, see where the draws on liquidity are, and go from there. So you know what my bias is tomorrow. You can kind of see these relative equal highs here, quite interesting too. And you've got these here that got taken out earlier. I think on the lower time frames, these end up being a few relative equal high areas as well. But because there's a new week opening gap, those two black lines there, a previous new week opening gap there, I'm gonna keep watch on those for the time being, and then let's see what kind of objectives it takes out before Wednesday's CPI. So with that, I think that is it for today. That's where I'm looking for tomorrow for a price to go to. Let me know if there's any questions. Hopefully the sound quality is better. I finally got some noise canceling down with this microphone, which picks up everything. I did record that intro to Apex, but I'm thinking I'm going to re-record that with better audio, just because you don't deserve crappy audio on that video, and I should be able to show that a little bit. So just wanted to pull one more thing from today. So this was the trade at about 1:08 p.m. US time. So I legged in to this because I saw it was rejecting immediately off of a volume imbalance, and I wanted to this actually was something that I wanted to take, but I was out of contracts. But as it bounced off the bottom here, I could see that we had liquidity drawing us up here. Now, I didn't want to hold because I had another meeting, but I did exit here and then go to my meeting, because this is the midway point of this fair value gap as well. So, you know, I also knew that this draw was coming soon too. I could see that the highs that were formed back at the morning, this is certainly an area that I was aiming for. So this is where I would have held if I could have managed the trade a little bit more closely. Yes, I'm on a 15-second time frame right now. You do not need to trade on a 15-second time frame. Everything you need is probably on the 60-minute, 15-minute, 5-minute, and 1-minute time frame. So you don't need to do this. I have multiple screens, so I've started to be able to pay attention to this for entries only. You do not want to be trading on just a 15-second chart, because you're going to get stopped out, because on the higher time frame, there's a lot more different levels to that. So yeah, I think that was a really good trade that I was fortunate to take. I think that was maybe a couple thousand there, and this is just on an evaluation account. I need to get the disclosures there, because once I start trading on the performance accounts, I may not put those trades on live, but I will certainly talk about the results over time for those. Maybe I will. I know. We'll see. We'll see. Let me know if you want me to trade live, and I'll go there. So with that, I'm going to close down. And actually, I just realized I wasn't showing my screen the whole time. So when I was talking about further upside here, and I wasn't even showing my screen for that trade, but this was the trade that I was talking about at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. So pretty nice little run there. And what I was mentioning earlier is that I was targeting these previous days, previous morning's high for liquidity. You can see that it hit that and then continued upwards almost all the way to this new week opening gap. And then it started to decline just slightly in Asia. So, yep. That is it on my side. Hopefully this was helpful. Thanks so much for chiming in. Salome, Elian, appreciate you, and hope to see you on another stream. And yeah, I think with that, have a great day. Have a great evening if you're here in the States, and we'll catch up tomorrow. Good trading tomorrow, okay? Take care.